what they did was make everything black or African negative. Now, Malcolm X said if they can make you hate Africa, it's going to be easy for them to make you hate yourself. And when we talk about the weave thing now, I'm not going to talk about the sisters' self-hate. That's if self-hate or lack thereof. I'll talk about my own issue. I ain't want to come nowhere near a woman with her natural hair. I didn't want to come nowhere near a dark-skinned sister. I was like you. She had to be light, and she had to, but that was my own self-hate. I never appreciated a African woman's natural hair until I began to love me.
There is this question that has been circulating among black people for a very long time, and I want to ask this question today. Does black people hate themselves, which they normally call it self-hate? In Africa, where I come from, people cherish their colonial names than their indigenous names. People cherish colonial languages than their indigenous languages. I've come across a video from Mitchell Chance where he's addressing this particular topic. I want us to watch this video. I will be back.
I had a lot of people asking me to do a video on self-hate. And I don't like to just do videos on stuff that I don't know anything about. So I'm like, well, let me do a little research so I can see what I can dig up on this, so I can go and do a little 5 to 7 minute video on self-hate. But as I began to dig and dig and dig, it got a whole lot deeper than just a 5 to 7 minute video, and it ended up becoming a book because I began to uncover a system that creates it. And this is how we are able to defeat it, is understanding how stuff starts. Because if you don't go down to the roots, you're never going to fix anything. And we'll sit here and we'll debate symptoms all day long, and we'll never get to the root cause of the problem because you have no idea why you feel the way you feel. If you are African in America and you have never read the Willie Lynch letter, you need to read it. If you never read the Willie Lynch letter, you're never going to understand some of your own subconscious bias because you don't know this man who was a psychologist, a group of psychologists, guys who understand the psyche, put together a whole system to make slaves mentally. They were called slave makers. So they would make you believe everything that it is. So with the system of self-hate, and I wish I had more time, what they did was make everything black or African negative. Now, Malcolm X said if they can make you hate Africa, it's going to be easy for them to make you hate yourself. And when we talk about the weave thing now, I'm not going to talk about the sisters' self-hate. That's if self-hate or lack thereof. I'll talk about my own issue. I ain't want to come nowhere near a woman with her natural hair. I didn't want to come nowhere near a dark-skinned sister. I was like you. She had to be light, and she had to, but that was my own self-hate. I never appreciated a African woman's natural hair until I began to love me. So when y'all talk about the man that's walking by, that man is dealing from self-hate also. So when I gave you guys the definition of self-hate is any subconscious bias, and this is what we got to keep this in our mind. Any subconscious bias that makes someone feel something exclusive to their race is unprofessional, uncivilized, inappropriate, or directly connected to negative stereotypes to the point you disassociate from or alter your natural, your cultural, or your comfortable state in order to look less like your own people. So now we have 3 different forms of self-hate that I discovered. One is firsthand self-hate. And firsthand self-hate is when everything around you makes you hate yourself internally. So that could be the sister with the weave. Not saying that it is, but that's what it could be. But the man, see, he's dealing with secondhand self-hate. See, he feels accepted, but he uses his acceptance in order to push his self-hate on somebody else. And we saw this when Wesley Snipes blew up because the dark-skinned men came in, but we ain't like our dark-skinned sisters. That's secondhand self-hate. And then we have a subtle self-hate where, and this is where a lot of us find ourselves, and especially in our neighborhoods, the subtle self-hate is when you're your people have been beat down so much that you just accept a lower standard of living. Some years ago, I did something. I started saying, I dare you to want more. And I went on this campaign, I dare you to want more, I dare you to want more. And so many people felt like every time I said, I dare you to want more, I was telling you weren't doing enough. And I began to talk to people about wanting to start your own business and being an entrepreneur. And I had a conversation with a sister, and she's like, so are you trying to say is something wrong with having a job? I said, there's nothing wrong with having a job, but you can't limit yourself. She said, well, my grandfather was proud to be a janitor. I said, well, just because he was proud to be a janitor does not mean he should be proud to be a janitor. But we have to understand that your grandfather was from a different era where he probably could not get anything else. But now, if you still have the same mindset your grandfather had, when there are more opportunities out there and more chances to do so much more, you're dealing with the subtle self-hate. So now the system of self-hate operates with four parts. Now, system is a organized and purposeful structure with members, factors, and parts that simultaneously influence one another to further their activity, the activity of the system, in order to complete the goal of the system. So we have 5 parts to the system of self-hate. We have economics, we have education, we have entertainment, we have etiquette, and we have news. And I'm going to deal with some of the things that people were talking about, especially when we get to this education, because this thing is really deep. So we start off with economics. Now, how many of you heard of Black Wall Street? How did you feel when you first started hearing about Black Wall Street? You felt a sense of pride, like, damn, we did that, right? Now, when we think of Black Wall Street, we think of Tulsa, Oklahoma. Tulsa, Oklahoma was not the only Black Wall Street. It was Black Wall Streets literally all over the country. Everywhere we were, we created towns that were thriving more than any other towns. In 1921, which is called Red Summer, they burned them down. They burned all of them down. You see that pride that you have thinking about what we did? Imagine how much pride they had in their own towns. See, there was no self-hate then because they were segregated. They were in their own towns and everything was black. So they burned it down because we can't allow you to have this kind of pride in yourself. We can't allow y'all to do all of these things. But then we learn about the Black Wall Streets that burned down. But what we don't learn about is that we rebuilt them. We rebuilt all of them and even more until 1956. It's called the Highway Act. And in the Highway Act of 1956, they eminent domained all the black business districts. And eminent domain is when the government can take your property for allegedly something for the betterment of the people. So they said, we need to build highways so that people can have access to different cities faster. And so what we're going to do is we're going to destroy every black business district. We're going to take all of that, so we're going to take their pride. But we got to understand they're always thinking forward. This also coincides with integration. Integration started in 1954. And what they did with that, they began to do what Malcolm X called token integration. So now they destroyed our economic base, right? Now all of the money that we had coming in is gone. But they did this integration and they began to take the best of us and say, come live with us. Which creates what I call the make it out the hood syndrome. See, we think it's okay to want to make it out the hood, but nobody wants to make it and help the hood. That right there is self-hate. I remember in the 90s when, I'm from South Philly, when black folks was finally able to go move to Snyder Avenue. Oh man, they was somebody. Oh man, when you moved from South Philly and you moved to Yaden, oh, you was somebody. Oh, if you moved to Darby, oh, you was somebody. You were successful. Why? Because it's no way you can feel like you're a success if you're still around your own people. And so this is how they use the economics to instill a self-hate in us. So now they destroyed all of our stuff. They eminent domained everything, right? And then they redlined us, which means they put certain areas where you can live. So if you were black, you could not live in certain places, even though it was post-segregation. The redlining, you still had to live in certain spots. And they built a bunch of housing projects. Now, we really don't think about words, right? You know what a project is? An experiment. So we have Thousands and thousands of people living in housing experiments, piled on top of each other in places with no resources, and you think they're not going to have some kind of disdain to who they are and where they are? How many of you have teased somebody because they was from the projects? Your hallways smell like piss. All of these different things. A bunch of different self-hate all through the economics. How much time we got? Ah, man. Let's move on to education. I wish I had more time. Right now in Philadelphia, it is illegal to teach preschoolers how to read. If you want to get funding for your preschool, one of the stipulations is you cannot teach them how to read. That's in the inner city only, obviously. Because if you get out of the inner city, then, they can teach their children how to read, which automatically puts our children at a disadvantage. Then when they do begin to teach us how to read, and when they do give us all of our curriculum, it's a lower curriculum than everybody else's. Now watch how they put the self-hate in us. So they give us a lower curriculum, but then they give us a standard test. But the standard test is not the curriculum that we learned. Now, every year, you want to tell me that 80% of us fail the standard test. And you want me to think that if every year you tell me barely any of us can pass what's standard and I don't have some kind of disdain towards education, you're crazy. So through this education, it begins to put a disdain towards education in most of our young men and young women. But then we do have the Levans. We got the talented 10th. Those who are going to be smart, those who are going to be bright, those are who are going to get it no matter what. But then you're going to be teased because the other kids are so psychologically damaged because you're telling me I can't pass the standard test. But let's push it a little further with education to see how deeper they mess us up. Imagine you're 8 years old and you start getting vocabulary. And you learn that to be blackballed means that people don't want to be around you. Or you learn to be blacklisted means somebody don't want to talk to you. Or that to blacken literally means to injure someone's reputation. But then whitewashing means to clear of a charge. A white collar crime, see, that's a better kind of crime. And this is my favorite. My sister schooled me on this one. If I lie, it's bad. But if I tell a white lie, if I tell a white lie, it's okay. So through the English language, and Martin Luther King talked about that, how they couch everything in language. If you look up the word black in your dictionary, it's always going to be something low and sinister. You look at the word white, it's always going to be something pure and holy. So through everything that we're learning, it's teaching us self-hate. Not only does it teach us self-hate through what it's teaching us, but also by what it omits. The fact that many of us just learned about Black Wall Street is a travesty. But you all said, I felt a sense of pride in my people because of what we did, which is why they omit it. Which is why it's not in the curriculum. Which is why when you're in first grade, they're not teaching you about all of these different Black Wall Streets that were all around the place because they don't want you to have any kind of pride. So through the education system, they are creating self-hate in us from children. They'll teach us about the Queen of England. They'll teach us about conquerors who are really just murderers. To the point where Cecil Rhodes went in South Africa and killed millions and millions and millions of our ancestors, yet we want to get a Rhodes Scholarship. If that ain't self-hate, I want to get a scholarship with the name of the man who killed millions and millions of my own people. Now they're going so far in Egypt, they have removed it from Africa. I don't know how they did it, but they teaching it. Egypt is no longer Africa. And now they over there lightening up the hieroglyphs to make them look a different color because they don't want you to have any self-love. They don't want you to have any pride in yourself. And so through the omission of the teachings, what's the lady's name? Jane Elliott. Ever watch her? Caucasian lady. Jane Elliott says, if you graduate high school and you aren't racist, you must have failed social studies. Now, she was talking to the Caucasians. Now, what I would say as an addendum to that is if we graduate high school and we haven't formed some form of self-hate, we must have failed social studies. Because the fact that they only teach us of the greatness of everybody else, but we don't learn our own greatness, as Ike talked about that earlier. When we don't know our own greatness, how can we truly love ourselves? We've been taught to believe that we were slaves, we got freed, and we just been broke ever since. Nobody talked about Queen Nzinga. Nobody talked about Mansa Musa. Nobody talked about any of these things. No, y'all were slaves. Matter of fact, before y'all were slaves, y'all just was uncivilized people in Africa. And that's why we enslaved y'all so we could civilize y'all. They omit that we went in Europe and civilized them. They ain't never going to teach y'all that. They teach us that we started off as cavemen. No. They were in caves. We had thriving cities with even electric. But they ain't going to tell you that. They're not going to tell you that. They're going to tell you that, what's the guy's name? They say invented the light bulb. They're going to tell you Thomas Edison invented the light bulb. They had the light bulb way before Edison, but they're not going to teach us that. So through the education system, y'all, it's funneling us into this self-hate. And we go from education to entertainment. Now, I'm going to seem like I'm going off track, but I want you to understand I'm going to bring this back. Now, I talked about Cecil Rhodes. I'm going to talk about him a little bit more right now. Cecil Rhodes was for one, he was a murderer, but he was the top of a diamond cartel. So in the early 1900s, they went into South Africa, killed a bunch of people, and took hold of the diamond trade. At this time, nobody cared about diamonds. Nobody wanted diamonds, but he had all of these diamonds. And so now he had to figure out, how am I going to sell all of these diamonds? So he hired N.W. Ayers, was somebody who did marketing. And they put together this campaign where they put up all of these billboards and they had all of these flyers and it was radio, and they began to push the engagement ring. And they begin to have the flyers with the woman with the rings, the left hand, right? She's happy, and they got celebrities to endorse it, and they made everybody, still to this day, over 100 years later, we still get the engagement ring because of a brilliant marketing scheme. So we don't even know why we want to propose with an engagement ring. Well, I'm letting you know, you want to propose with an engagement ring because of awesome marketing. Now, what does that have to do with entertainment? If marketing can make you make the man desire to buy and the woman to want an engagement ring because of billboards, how much more can watching 10, 15 movies of your own people doing negative stuff, or listening to 10, 15 hour-long albums of your people doing negative stuff, how much more can that cause you to do something? Now, people will try to say that the music or the movies do not cause you to do anything, but that's just foolishness. Because if marketing doesn't work, then why are they paying millions of dollars for Super Bowl commercials? The psychologists figured out some way, somehow, that red makes you hungry. So Wendy's got red in it, and McDonald's got red in it, and Checkers got red in it, and Burger King got red in it, and it's all marketing. You wonder why you was hungry as soon as you saw McDonald's, wasn't you, Tasha? When they can get in your psyche, they can get you to do anything. Now, they'll tell us, right, that the music doesn't cause any actions, right? It's okay. And they was fine when NWA was talking about killing black people. When they made a song and said, fuck the police, all of a sudden it was, you're inciting violence and you're going to cause cops to get killed. But I thought the music doesn't. See, If I come out with a song right now and they say, I'm going to kill these cops, I'm going to kill these cops, I'm going to be on CNN, be on everything. They're going to want me in jail because they're going to say, I'm going to get these cops killed. But nobody had a problem when Mitch caught a body about a week ago was the number one line in a rap song for a whole summer. Reason being because Mitch was black and they didn't care. But they want you to live out. In psychology, it's called modeling. If I show you doing something long enough, you begin to believe you're supposed to do it. So now, where I'm from, as Cassidy said in a rap, getting a body is an accomplishment, or killing somebody. So the more they showed us killing and the more they showed us selling drugs, we begin to buy into this image all because of what we saw. And they do this purposefully. Right now, look at it. What are our biggest shows that we got? We got Power, Empire, Scandal, and Love It. We'll do it with reality shows and How to Get Away with Murder. Now, let's look at what they begin to create because, listen, Shonda Rhimes, she's a good writer. And I can't lie, the twists and the plots and turns is amazing. But let's look at what imagery has been created. Well, let's just deal with Scandal and How to Get Away with Murder. We got two prominent black women, powerful black women, women that any other black woman will want to aspire to be. But neither of them can have a functioning relationship with a black man. In fact, Olivia wants to jump between white man's bed to white man's bed, one of which is married. Annalise is also sleeping with a married man. So now, and these are our biggest shows. So what does this do? This begins to create the thought that black women are home wreckers. All because of the TV show. Now, if I'm a woman and I don't subscribe to being a home wrecker, I now have to try to disassociate, make sure I'm not like those black women. You see, this is how the self-hate is. It causes us to begin to disassociate from our own people. Now, I not only have to condemn the lifestyle, I also got to condemn you if you tweeted, I love Olivia and Fitz together. Now, I don't want to say I'm anything like you, all because of a fictitious character. All because of a fictitious character. And this is how they breed more and more self-hate in us. So we did economics, education, entertainment. We're on 4. We're on etiquette. And I was talking to one of my brothers, and he was like, man, when I heard you say etiquette, I just didn't know what you was, how that had anything to do with self-hate. Again, I started off saying they make everything exclusively to our culture. They make it wrong, it's inappropriate, it's uncivilized, or it's the key word, ghetto. So now, they'll put in a TV show or a movie a black woman doing black woman stuff. She might be clapping her hands, she might be snapping her fingers, she might be twisting her neck. And they're going to say, that's ghetto. Well, what's wrong with doing what we culturally do? See, we begin to subscribe to this stuff. It's our people. If this is what we want to do, then this is just what we do. But they begin to make you feel like the stuff that's culturally exclusive to your own people is wrong. So now you want to, I don't do that. I don't act like that. Again, I don't act like them. I'm not nothing like them. You begin to disassociate from your own people and from your own culture. Nobody can dictate something exclusive to anybody's culture is wrong. It's just something that they do. Now, everybody in this world admires and loves the differences in all of the cultures except ours. Everything that's exclusive to us becomes unprofessional. Now, as I've been evolving in my self-love, especially in loving Africa, I was in ShopRite one day, and I saw a sister. She had tattoos all over the place. She had a ring in her nose. She had a ring in her lip. And my first thought, my self-hate kicked in. I said, look at her. She look crazy. She ain't never going to get a job. But then my self-love kicked in and said, well, the carving of the face is traditional African stuff. And and putting piercings through your nose or through your lip. This is traditional African stuff. But now I have bought into this American ideal to the point where if I see somebody who mimics or looks like something traditionally African, I immediately look at you and say, you ain't never gonna get no job, because they made everything exclusive to us unprofessional. So much to the point right now, literally, jobs can discriminate on you if you have dreadlocks. It's law now. That is on the books as an unprofessional hairstyle. Not just the hairstyles. My brother Herman and I was talking one day, something that we used to always hear. It was so crazy now that I really look back and think about it. Some of the older women and men would say, why y'all walk like thugs? I'm like, what the hell do a thug walk like? Like, do I punch, stab, and shoot a bunch of people, and then all of a sudden my walk just changed? Like, what is the walk of a thug? But it wasn't that it was a walk of the thug. It was just a walk of the everyday black man, but we get demonized. In 2004, David Stern changed the dress code for the NBA. He said he didn't tell us what they want the dress code to be. He wanted to make sure you know what he didn't want it to be. And he said, I don't want no fitted caps. I don't want no do-rags. I don't want no baggy jeans. And I don't want no Timberland boots. You can't wear none of that, because I don't want my guys looking like gangsters. I ain't the smartest man in the world, but I thought John Gotti and Al Capone and Lucky Luciano and all these guys was gangsters, and they wore suits. So Dave, what are you really saying? Are you really saying is it gangsters, or are you really just against looking like black men? And did you just equate what the everyday black man looks like to being a gangster? But look at that. But watch how this turns into self-hate. Now, if I don't want to have the appearance of a gangster, I got to stop dressing like my people. And I then begin to buy into this idea so much to the point where if I see you, Ike, I'm looking at you like, well, you know what? You obviously don't want to succeed in life because you don't want to change the way you dress. You don't want to subscribe to these different standards. So now I don't even want to help you, which is why so many of our people who have made it out the hood don't want to come back and help the hood, because they feel like you don't want help or you don't deserve help because you won't change. So if you want to stay true to your roots, it's like, I can't help you because you don't want to look like you want to look. I can't shave my mustache off. You look like a straight pedophile. But if you want to get in certain circles, you got to shave all of that off. And if you don't want to do it, then I got to disassociate myself from you. What else do we have in etiquette? Posture. Now, I consider myself an educated man. And a lot of people who know me consider me an educated man, right? And listen, y'all, I fell like a couple of days ago. And so my tailbone is hurting. So I can't even do the illustration right now. So we just going to talk it through. Because that just hurt as soon as I sat down. I was just hurt. Sometimes I would be in certain places, right? And I'll be sitting down in my comfortable position. Remember that, the subconscious bias, if you deviate from your comfortable state. So my comfortable state, I got a little lean when I sit down. That's what I do. I got a little lean. But sometimes when I was in certain arenas, I found myself sitting up and perking a certain way and looking like everybody else and getting away from what's comfortable to me, because now I want to have the appearance that I'm just as educated as everybody else in here. So now I believe, this is me, this ain't even nobody else, this is me. I believe that my comfortable state takes away from my knowledge. This is self-hate. I gotta change the way I sit in a chair, because the way black people sit in the chair is inappropriate. Because they've made everything exclusive to black people inappropriate. And I gotta change everything about me. All right. The last part of this is the news. I had a sister I was having a conversation with one day who works overnight. And she said she lived about a couple blocks from the L. And she said at night she would run from her house to the L because she didn't want any of the men that was in the area to do something to her. I said, has any man ever just randomly violated you? She said, no. I said, then what makes you run from your house to the L every day in fear of what these men are going to do to you if your experience says no black man has ever randomly harmed you? And her response was, I see what happens on the news. Me personally, I have never ever in my life had a random black man while I'm walking down the street at night harm me. Yet, I've always been cautious of that black man coming towards me. Why? What if my experience says I have a 0% chance of the random black man harming me? Why in the world am I cautious every time I see a black man with my experience say he ain't gonna do nothing to me? See, the news over-represents us as the perpetrators all the time. So if it's really only 50% of us or 50% of the crime committed by blacks, the news is going to show it to us 85% of the times. So we're going to see 8 to 9 out of every 10 stories is going to be a black man doing something. To create this in your mind that everything that's going on in your neighborhood when it's not even really going on. You live in your neighborhood. You know what's really going on, but the news that made you think is more crazy than it really is. Which is why so many folks think, I gotta make it and leave the hood because if I stay, I'm gonna get robbed. I'm gonna get killed. You ain't got killed this whole time. You ain't got robbed this whole time. Now I know some alleged robbers. They go out the hood to rob. You leave the hood, they gonna find you where you at with your money. They not in the hood robbing, but through what we see on this news over and over and over again, it becomes programmed because we remember everything visually. Whatever image gets put in front of you over and over and over and over again, you begin to believe the image, and now they have created this image that every black man is some kind of violent man. He's some kind of thug, even in death. Trayvon got killed, but he was a thug in the hoodie. Eric Gardner was a thug because he got choked out. Mike Brown was a thug in the hoodie. How can we die and be the thug, but then Brock Turner raped somebody and he's just a misled child? Do you see the difference in how they speak of it? Now, in the 80s, when crack hit hard, they destroyed us on the news. They made us seem to be just animals who don't know how to live and we just getting high. But now that the dope is hitting the Caucasians real hard, now it's, we got to have sympathy for these people. It's a sickness, but it wasn't a sickness when it was us. When it was us, it was a war on drugs. And we got to lock everybody up. No, now when it's dope, we got to give y'all a free thing to shoot in your leg in case you overdose. So because they control the news, they control the narrative. And if they control the narrative and you continue to listen to it, then that's what you'll begin to believe. And that is how the news is used to create further and further self-hate in us. In 5 minutes, and I'm going to be done. And I'm going to Jody, I know I'm over time. I'm good. See, listen, I love that when the place is black owned, you can say, we need a little bit more time. All right, we own this, so you can go ahead. We were somewhere else, they'd be like, you know what, you know your time is up. You know. Now, so as I was uncovering all this, I'm like, well, how do they really get us to believe this stuff? What is it that they do or really use to really get us to buy into this? And I found 3 different psychological buy-ins. Now, the first one is brand protection. So we have some of our elites, in the 80s, late 80s, early 90s, Michael Jordan was famously quoted when they was asking him about speaking out on some travesties that was going on against the Republicans. His response was, Republicans buy sneakers too. I got to protect my brand. I can't say anything that's going to go against the status quo. I can't really say anything about helping black people. I can't really say anything about the travesties that's going on. We see what's going on with Colin Kaepernick. They more mad that he's kneeling than people are dying. And then we have other black athletes who coming out speaking against him, but they won't speak against the murder. Why? Because they protecting their brand. Layla Ali did an interview and you can hear her heart. She's like, I'm torn. It's like, I want to say this and I want to say that, but I don't want to offend people and I got to protect my brand. But protecting that brand was the biggest thing for her. She said, I'm going to be quiet. I'm not going to say anything because it's going to destroy my brand. And once our prestigious people, once they have bought into protecting their brand at all costs, they won't do anything for their people. They'll stay away from their people. The second psychological buy-in is one we touched on a little bit. It's just professionalism. Now, I'm a speaker, so what I do, I've been speaking for 10 years. Now, if you hear my voice, I got a little raspy tone to my voice. I didn't always use that raspy tone because I felt that my raspy tone was unprofessional. Again, going back to the men, the shaving of the face or the changing of your hair. And the sister talked about that being the AV at the mortgage company. They make you feel like anything exclusive to yourself is black. Sean, was I just talking to you about doing something with your hair at the job? Was that you? So, now, was it 2016, 2015? Amanda Steinberg, the young girl from the Hunger Games, beautiful. She talked about this. She said how the imagery that was presented made her look at her hair and think it was just too big. And she said, I just want to be smaller. What does that mean? I want to quench myself. I want to quench who I am to fit into these images. And when we're in these settings, it's a tragedy that a black woman can say or feel that I don't want to go and work into the job with my hair in its natural state in fear of how somebody is going to feel about my natural self. But nobody else is fearful of their natural self. Everybody else is cool. As she talked about earlier, the man, but I love pasta. We eat pasta and pasta is good. But she said, I was scared to talk about the fried chicken. With the professionalism. Then the third psychological buy-in, and this is where a lot of folks have fell, is reverse racism. They make you believe anything pro-black is racist. Well, I want to support all black businesses. That's racist. I want to help black people. That's racist. And they'll say it to the point where some of us begin to psychologically buy into it. I put a post up about 2 years ago on Facebook. I said, tag a black-owned business and support the rest of them. So this joint got flooded with all of the, it was hundreds of comments, right? So somebody tagged this black sister. And she commented, well, I ain't supporting no black businesses just because they black. I was like, but you a black woman. Don't you want our support? But she felt like it was something inherently wrong with supporting your own people. So psychologically, if they can get you to buy in to thinking that anything that stands up for your people is racist, they'll try to equate the Black Panther Party for self-defense with the Ku Klux Klan. For one, they'll never say the Black Panther Party for self-defense. They just stop at Black Panther. They never get to the party for self-defense. Because if they say self-defense, that's going to let you know they was only defending themselves. So they going to cut it off to where they can make you think these people were bad. My brother in the back, Darryl, told me a story about this. He said, his daughter was in school and she had to, it was an assignment you have to write about somebody that you look up to. So this how you know his household is black power. His daughter, how old was she? His daughter said, I'm doing Angela Davis. That's a black power household. And the teacher said, oh, no, you can't do a report on her. You can't look up to her. She's a bad person. She was a Black Panther. Glad his daughter had some education and stood her ground. Like, no, she was not a bad person, and neither was the Black Panther. So the teacher had to go and, do some research. But the teacher, when I remember being young and my parents telling us to hide under your bed because the Black Panthers are coming to get you. This is what they taught them. But then they also taught it to us. Because I'm going to be honest. it's maybe been a year and a half, maybe 2, if I push it, that I thought the Black Panthers were good people. Prior to that, I thought they were some radical Ku Klux Klan type people because that's the way I was taught. I was taught that they were black supremacists. And so I'm looking at them as racist when the only thing they wanted to do was feed, clothe, and shelter their people. But if they can get you to buy in to anything supporting your own people is racist, it will put that self-hate into you and keep you from doing anything to building up your people. I wish I had more time.
Okay, the truth of the matter is the people who invented black hate among black people were genius because they really did a great job of white washing or brainwashing our mind, because the amount of self-hate among black people has really not helped us to develop. Has never helped us to develop. Please go to my description box and click on the Telegram link. It will take you to my Telegram platform. Join us for us to discuss about the well-being of Africa and Africans in diaspora. If today is your first time coming to this channel, then don't forget to subscribe to this channel and turn on the notification button so that anytime I upload any great content, you will be notified. Thanks for watching.